Great, so everyone can see me, can hear me, can see most of you. Great, well, very warm welcome to the second half as well for the Saturday class. My name is Dharmasara, as I said. And I'll be, as Dharmasara has announced in the WhatsApp group. So for those of you who are new before the WhatsApp group, I'll tell you later how to join that if you want to. There'll only be announcements and stuff like that. And he's announced that I'll be giving a talk about friendship. Yeah, so the talk will be about friendship, the Buddhist view of friendship. And I've this talk has kind of written itself almost. I didn't really feel like I've written it. I was on retreat the past 2 weeks. I came back on Monday night, and I was in a little hut in Spain, in the mountains of Spain, a solitary retreat. So that means you're alone. So I didn't see anyone for 2 weeks. I was just in the Spanish mountains in a little hut, together with a lot of boars and pine martens and Spanish mountain goats, bumblebees making their way from the thyme flowers. The 2 week solitary is just what I try to do every year. It's not, some people are crazy and do like 11 weeks and, months long solitaries. I'm not there yet. I just try to keep it simple. But anyway, it was a strong experience, and this theme sort of came up, and for some reason I called this talk the Mysticism of Friendship. The Mysticism of Friendship. Mainly just because it sounded funny, but there's no deeper meaning behind it. Well, maybe there is. Mysticism just meaning, obviously, a direct communication with something higher, a direct communication with the transcendental almost. And on that solitary, on that retreat, I just felt that for me at least, friendship had part of this sort of communication with something higher, something in friendship, in Buddhist friendship, allowed me to actually come in touch with higher mental states. But I'll say a bit more about that later. Let's see. So this is all stuff I've written while I was alone. And sometimes you come back from retreat and you look at your notes and you think, what was I on? So let's see what happens. So I just want to start with 2 experiences I've had, not on the solitary, the first one at least. 2 experiences that made me think about this mysticism of friendship, this sort of direct communication with something higher through friendship. And the first little situation I'm going to tell you about is, those of you who know me won't be surprised, but it happened in an opera house. You'll hear a lot about opera when you talk about me. Basically, if I'm not here, I'm in an opera house, so if you're trying to find where I am. So this happened last year in November. I was watching Tristan and Isolde, Wagner, with 5 hours long, great, absolute amazing, together with Dharmasara. Yeah, my friend Dharmasara isn't here today. And I'm really into Wagner, as many people know. Wagner sort of comes second to me to the Buddha, maybe. Maybe that's a very wrong view, but anyway, that's emotionally how it is for me. I've got this friend, I'm diverting a bit. I've got this friend I've known him for 15 years or whatever. And his boyfriend, he's a very new boyfriend. I sometimes hang out with them, I sometimes go to the opera with them. And this boyfriend, one day, while he had a bit of mulled wine in his, from the Christmas market, was like, kind of positioned himself in front of me and was like, "You're a bit weird. I just don't know how to place you. I just can't put you into any box." And I said, "Okay, what kind of box do you want to put me in?" And he was like, "Well, for one, you're ultra religious." Which I found funny. I thought, okay, so that's his description of me meditating once a day and working in a Buddhist center. So apparently I'm ultra religious. I thought that's like reserved for people who like whip themselves or something, but anyway, like in that Da Vinci movie. Anyway, I'm ultra religious, but you're also just nice and friendly, approachable. And then on the other hand, you're really into Wagner, but you're also not a Nazi. So don't worry. I talk a lot about Wagner, but I'm not a Nazi. You can feel safe here. Sorry, that was just a little side story. Anyway, so Tristan and Isolde, if you don't know it, it's an amazing story. It's an old sort of myth. Tristan is a Cornish prince from Cornwall. Isolde is the Irish princess. He's kidnapped her. They fall in love. They're not supposed to be in love because Isolde is supposed to marry Tristan's uncle, father, forgot, someone. So they're not supposed to be in love. They are in love. They won't kill themselves because they're in love. So Isolde's friend gives a love potion instead of a death potion to both of them because she doesn't want them to die. So they fall even more madly in love because they're on this love potion. 4.5 hours of suffering in this opera because they're not supposed to be in love, but they love each other intensely, but they're not supposed to be together. No one's supposed to find out. In the end, everyone finds out. So all friends become enemies. They all kill each other. Tristan dies from his wounds that his friend put onto him. So his friend kind of stabbed him. Tristan dies in the arms of Isolde. And then, so in the last sort of 10 minutes, last 50 minutes, you only see Isolde with the sort of dead body of Tristan, her beloved. And her love is kind of becoming transfigured, yeah? She has now lost the object of her love, but she hasn't lost the love. Yeah, so her love becomes vaster, becomes universal love. So while we were sitting there, Taraparlita and myself, on the stage you've got this like weird staging, which looked like 70s, like naked people on the stage, like ooh, edgy, and I've never seen that before. Then you've got, in the role of Isolde, you've got Nina Stemme, which is a brilliant singer, but at the end of her career, very weak voice these days. And then the tenor, Tristan, he was very new, but he had some sort of throat thing going on, so he kept like drinking water. So it wasn't perfect, but still something was kind of coming through this last aria, just this last 8 minutes or so of the whole opera. Mind you, we've been sitting there for 6 hours, while, with breaks and everything, just listening through this whole intense emotional story that doesn't find any resolution because there's no resolution on the normal plane. No one can win. And something is shining through. I can feel myself starting to float from my seat towards this aria, towards this. We could feel the whole audience kind of starting to float into the audience, towards the stage. And just so something extremely beautiful has emerged among everyone. Yeah, you can really feel, I've been to many operas, but I've never seen so much enthusiasm coming from the audience towards those singers. Yeah, so much, there was this silence when everyone walked out, like everyone was kind of dragging themselves out because they were so emotionally touched by what was happening. There were a few friends in the audience as well, and when we met them, we just couldn't talk. We said, I can't talk, I can't possibly put into words what we've just witnessed. Can't possibly say what just happened. And well, part of that experience was, because I go to the opera all the time, but part of that experience was being there with my friend, being there with Taraparlita. We had such a lovely evening, and just something sort of merged. Yeah, something allowed myself to sort of open up to this experience of beauty. I'm just going to read, so just for you to get a bit of a sense, I'm not going to read the whole aria, but just So Isolde she's just quiet for a long time, and then her friends ask her, what are you, what do you see? Why are you just staring into nothingness? And she answers with the words, mildly and gently, how he smiles. So Tristan is dead. How the eye he opens sweetly. Do you see it, friends? Don't you see it? Brighter and brighter how he shines, illumined by stars, rises high. Don't you see it? Friends, look, don't you feel and see it? Do I alone hear this melody, which wonderfully and softly, lamenting delight, telling it all, mildly reconciling, sounds out of him, invades me, swings upwards, sweetly resonating, rings around me? Are these waves of soft airs? Are these billows of delightful fragrances? How they swell, how they soar around me? Shall I breathe? Shall I listen? Shall I drink, immerse, sweetly in fragrances melt away? In the billowing torrent, in the resonating sound, in the wafting universe of the world, breath, drown, be engulfed, unconscious, supreme delight. She sings it in German, obviously, which for once sounds much nicer than the English, I'm afraid. Oh, one of those rare occasions. Anyway, just to give you this kind of, so she's sort of lost her object of love, but the love isn't, is still there. It's sort of transformed into something bigger. So keep that in mind. I'll come back to that later. So this is the first story. Then the second story is actually it's a bit shorter because it's not really one particular situation, but it was this solitary. It was those 2 weeks alone in Spain with all those animals who kept trying to get into my hut. They didn't, but I mean, I was just really afraid. I'm such a city boy. I mean, it's anyway. So I'm usually really afraid on these solitaries, but so I've done quite a few of them now. But this one, I just felt like I was sort of carried through the whole thing on the hands of friendship. Yeah, I was just carried by my friends while being alone. I felt as if my whole life is being held together by friendship. Because when you're alone, all you have is your mind. Yeah, all becomes mind when you're alone for a longer period. All becomes mind. So usually I'm very afraid, or I can get into like all sorts of existential crises on these kind of solitaries. But this time I felt like I wasn't just aware of the people that I loved, I was very aware of the people who loved me, which is a very difficult thing for me to sometimes acknowledge, to just open yourself up to that knowledge of, oh no, actually people do love me. So every time I wanted to go into some sort of existential dread or whatever, or into a difficult situation, there was this voice of one or other of my friends popping up saying, no, let's not go there. You don't need that. So I didn't have any problems. Yay. If you know about the solitary before, it was awful. It was just so full of existential dread. This time it was just like, I thought, oh, my mind isn't just me. Yeah, I'm not just my mind. There's all these kind of relationships that we have that carry us forward, that hold us. So anyway, so I just spent dwelling on that fact for the whole 2 weeks. Yeah, I spent dwelling on friendship. So what I did is I just dwelled also on how important friendship is in Buddhism. I thought, well, what place does friendship have in Buddhism? Is there a place for friendship in Buddhism? Or aren't we just supposed to be like completely independent and individuals and all that? But no, as many of you know, there's a huge place for friendship in Buddhism. I'll just quickly go through kind of the main examples, but I don't want to spend too much on that. So I mean, one of the first examples that some of you will know is the story of a monk called Meghiya. Yeah, Meghiya was a friend of the Buddha. He was the Buddha's companion. He traveled with the Buddha. And one day, young Meghiya, very idealistic, sees this mango grove. And he thinks, wow, this must be perfect for meditation. This must be perfect for, as he says, fighting the fight of the spiritual life. Completely conquering his mind. And he goes to the Buddha and asks the Buddha, is it okay if I go away, if I go into solitude and meditate in this mango grove? Is it okay if I leave you and just meditate there? The Buddha says, no, I'll be alone. I won't have anyone to look after me. But Meghiya is stern and says, no, you don't understand. You are already enlightened. I still have loads to do. Let me go and let me fight the fight of the spiritual life. Buddha says, no, Meghiya, I need you here. Anyway, the third time he asks, the Buddha says, well, okay, if you talk about fighting, well, what can I say? Just go then, if you need to do it. As soon as Meghiya sits down alone, all sorts of distractions come up, all sorts of, he just can't meditate. He's just completely overwhelmed by his own mind, by all sorts of distractions. So he comes back to the Buddha, reports back, and the Buddha says, well, he doesn't say, well, told you so, but sort of says that. Very friendly. And he gives him a list of 5 things that he needs to do. He needs to develop 5 qualities that he needs to develop. And the first one is friendship, spiritual friendship, is association with those who are also on the path. And he says, and the Buddha then says, those who have spiritual friends, of those can be expected that they also develop, deeper meditations, that they can develop ethics, that they can develop wisdom, all these Buddhist qualities. But friendship comes first. Yeah. So this is then the Buddhist example. You need to stay with people, and then you can go off, and then it is expected that you develop spiritually. This is the first example of the Buddhist tradition. Second example, just very quickly, another companion, sort of the main companion of the Buddha, called Ananda. He one day was completely inspired by friendship. He said, oh, isn't it amazing? Isn't friendship just amazing? Buddha, isn't it absolutely lovely? I think that's almost half of the spiritual life, isn't it, to just be friends? And the Buddha says, oh no, Ananda, no. It's the whole of the spiritual life. Not just half, it's the whole of the spiritual life. This is the second. There's loads of other examples in the Buddhist tradition, but I just wanted to give you a little image of that is actually there from the very beginning. This is what the Buddha taught, is that friendship, community is where spiritual growth takes place, is where we can practice Buddhism. So I thought to myself, well, why? Why is that? Why is friendship so important? Why is it that that friendship almost is the whole path, you could say? And I think this is what I'm going to try to argue for, is that friendship actually is the whole path. Yeah, friendship is the whole of the spiritual life. We could forget about all other teachings and just focus on friendship, and we would go all the way to enlightenment. Well, the first thing I thought is that friendship is there at every stage of the path. Friendship is there at every stage of the path. Some of you might know that we sometimes divide the path into the threefold path of ethics, meditation, and wisdom. So the whole path from where we are now towards enlightenment can be kind of stated under those headings of ethics, meditation, wisdom. Well, and in ethics, what do we try to practice? We try to practice friendliness, generosity, truthfulness. We do that in friendship. In meditation, we practice bliss. We practice, the metta bhavana, the development of loving kindness. An old Buddhist master of medieval India says that meditation, the essence of meditation, is the exchange of self and other. You completely go beyond any kind of ego clinging on the path of meditation. So where do you do that? You do that within friendship, obviously. You develop friendship with others. Well, and then what is wisdom in Buddhism? Wisdom is overcoming egotism, overcoming your sort of fixed view of that you are here separated from others. And as you will see in my talk, hopefully, that is exactly what's happening in friendship. You lose your sense of self. You lose your sense of boundaries, your sense of disconnectedness. In fact, there's in the Buddhist tradition, a whole sort of, you could say, a whole threefold path of love, where you start out practicing love, you start out practicing loving kindness by first becoming friendly, benevolent, compassionate towards all sentient beings. This is what we do at the last stage of the Metta Bhavana. We spread out our love, our loving kindness towards all, towards the whole world, towards all sentient beings, actually seeing them as beings rather than as objects, actually seeing beings as alive, emotionally connecting with them, actually seeing that there's life all around us and that they are as alive as we are. This is what the Buddhist tradition says is sort of the first thing you see when you practice love. But that is not all. I mean, that's difficult enough. But that's not the first step. You don't need to worry about going to the second step, but if you intensify that love, intensify that connections to all sentient beings, to all living beings, it becomes so strong that the distinction between yourself and the other becomes relaxed. The more you identify with all, the less you identify just with yourself. You're not letting go of yourself. You're not trying to negate yourself. No. You are actually, that sort of distinction, that border becomes more and more translucent, more and more transparent. You actually, to prefer the other's needs to your own is not so difficult in that stage. Whether, your friend is, having, success or a certain present, or, when you share just simple things like a cake or whatever, that your friend has his needs fulfilled is as important to you as having your own needs fulfilled. So to prefer the needs of the others to your own is not so difficult. It's actually, you sort of almost mentally unite with the other. This is the second stage. And then the more you intensify that, the more you dwell in love and in metta, it takes on a completely other form as well. It becomes a completely different experience altogether, where any category of yourself and the other is completely transcended. There isn't any me and you and we're the same. There's just a dropping of self and other. Self and other doesn't exist anymore. All worldly conventions and ways of looking, of inner and outer, are transcended. We've reached now what we call in Buddhism the essence of voidness and compassion. Voidness of self and other, but full of compassion, undirected compassion. Enlightenment. So do you see how by just focusing on love, you not just negating yourself, but loving yourself intensely, loving your friend intensely, you just need to stay with that and intensify. And through that you will grow, your consciousness won't break away, it will actually grow and learn to identify with more than what we are now. So then what kind of friendship is the one that will give rise to the essence of voidness and compassion? So this is I'm going to paint a bit of an image now, what the ideal friendship would be. Don't worry if you don't have that in your life, because probably I don't have it, but this is what I thought the ideal would look like. So a real friendship, just to give you an idea, the real friendship in this sort of sense would give rise to higher mental states beyond neurotic craving. Yeah, you would be able to leave behind a neurotic craving of wanting your needs fulfilled. You would just feel intensely, you would feel an intense love, an intense well-wishing for your friend. You want to adorn the other, you want to beautify the other, you completely cherish the friend, the other. You're almost, as I said, mentally uniting with the other person. The boundaries are actually fading away. There's a complete emotional openness, complete emotional flow, where it's not that you are kind of just doing, you don't just love your friend, but the friend loves you back. Yeah, it can't just be unidirectional. You have to look for someone who can do the same. Yeah, don't just empty yourself. But ideally, there would be a complete emotional flow and a complete openness. There wouldn't be any need for disclosures or confessions, apologies, because you are already naked in a way. You are already existentially naked towards the other. Whatever sexual or romantic energies are getting stirred through that friendship will get purified as you go along. That sometimes can happen. Happened to me many a times. Especially on retreats. There's this thing we call retreat love, where you're on retreat, very good mental states, you're just with all these people who are like into like spirituality and like talk about their emotions, and you think, oh my god, found my soulmate. You go off retreat and you think, actually, not that into you after all. But sometimes, because I think in our culture, we're very, very focused on the significant other, on that one special person that we're going to meet who will be our confidant, our sexual partner, everything. They will be everything for us. As soon as we tap into a space where friendship gets very intimate and intense, all those kind of sexual, romantic feelings get stirred, because we usually put them onto our sexual or romantic partner. So that happens. But they will get purified. They're just immature emotions at that stage. They will actually purify themselves if you keep practicing. If you're in conflict with that friend, you will have deep faith and the deep conviction that the conflict will be resolved. You don't mind conflict because you know that there's this deep conviction, deep faith that it will be fine. You never feel apart existentially. This was my experience on the solitary. I did not feel like I was not with my friends. Sangharakshita, the founder of our order and movement, he even in one seminar, he said, maybe we know people better when we're apart from them. Maybe physical contact can actually get in the way of knowing people, because we're just presented with a very strong idea of that person. But to know them on a deeper level, maybe we will have to feel apart from them and mentally connect with them and emotionally connect with them. Don't know what that means, but that's something to reflect on, that maybe physical distance can actually be a problem sometimes, because you're just running off your own projections. You're just running off your own reactivity. But if there is actually separation, on another level, it feels like a great loss. In this sort of ideal friendship, it feels like a great tragic. I definitely had that when there was a time when Tarabalta thought he was going to leave Berlin and he needs to go to England, and we were trying to talk about it at Guru down the road in Curtisstrasse, but I couldn't talk. I was just bawling, crying in front of him, so he had to drag me out. We went to the cafe, just kept crying, and he was okay, I guess I'm staying. Got you. That wasn't the reason, but anyway, it's just obviously I would have been able to let him go, but it just feels like this tremendous, as if something is sort of breaking away from you. Taupata once said to me, being in a friendship with me sometimes feels like being in a relationship, Well, I hope it's better than a relationship, because the sort of the essence of this sort of my ideal friendship is that it's a constantly maturing friendship. It's a constantly maturing love. You start from very muddy feelings to purer and purer states of love. Like Isolde, the object of your love can drop away, but the love just matures and matures. It's not clingy. It doesn't cling on to self and other. It just becomes purer and purer. So you go from retreat love to sort of a muddy, intimate love, to selfless love, to the kiss of the voidness, as I called it. Anyway, I thought I was a bit dramatic with that one, but it sounds nice, doesn't it? So you move from a love potion of crazy love to the objectless, transcendent love. I'm going to read out another little quote to you, this time from the founder of our order, Sangharakshita. He's also a poet. And when he was in his 20s, he experienced deep, deep love for someone, even though he was a monk. Oops, I wasn't supposed to love anyone, but anyway. So he wrote poetry about it. And he captures, so it's not really, it's a bit like a freestyle poem. It doesn't really rhyme, but just in this short excerpts, I think he really captures the essence of this like maturing love, of this sort of path of love. It's really long, so I'm just going to read out a short extract. He says, "This love of mine is for you and not for you, as the moonlight is for the cloud and not for the cloud. When love has conducted you into the golden presence of his master compassion, he bows to the ground before him and departs. When the sun of passion has gone down dazzlingly behind the western horizon of my heart, the moon of love will arise starrily behind the eastern horizon of my soul. Time was when, at the sight of you, love ran through my veins like fire. Now when I behold your face, the moonlight of compassion universal floods my heart. What I thought was my love for you is, now I find in reality compassion for all sentient beings." This is the quote. This is quite a path. This is a long poem called "The Veil of Stars." So do you see how you can sort of see any sort of formulation of the path can become the main working ground, and in this time it's love. It's the emotional side of the path, you could say. This is what's happening. Obviously there's awareness and there's mindfulness and there's reflection and there's wisdom and all these things, but we could just take love and let it mature to an extent where it actually becomes transcendental insight. And then now lastly, I thought, well, how on earth do we do that? It sounds very nice, but how on earth do we traverse this path? So I've got a few kind of reflections on what I'm trying to do, how to traverse this path of love. Maybe it's helpful for you as well. So the first one is, get in touch with your emotions. Actually know what's going on. This is why we are doing the mindfulness of breathing, to actually get in touch with our whole being. We also do the metta bhavana, where we are getting in touch with our emotions. We actually need to experience them directly. And we need to become aware of them. This is what meditation, first of all, like in its first stages, is trying to do, is trying to actually know what's going on within us, actually know what is happening emotionally, mentally, acknowledge emotions, experience them even. Sometimes in some corners, meditation is taught as a sort of trying to stay aloof from what's happening. Not yet. Don't do that yet. Get in touch with it. Experience it. Don't indulge with it if it's negative. Try not to indulge with your anger and hatred, but try to acknowledge and get a feel for them, for your positive and negative emotions. Actually know how they feel like, how they come and go. And then you can, I don't know, think about that there isn't such a thing as self or whatever. But you can't do that unless you've sort of really integrated your emotional life. Once we've got in touch with our emotions, deepen the emotions through meaning in life. Yeah, this is what we call commitment to an ideal, for example. This is why we commit to something like the Buddha, the Dharma, his teachings, the Sangha. Is emotions can be only deepened if we have some sort of principle of value in our life, some sort of principle of higher meaning, whatever that may be. Then emotions can get very deep indeed. I think a meaningful life is necessarily a committed life. A committed life is a life of meaning. You want to commit to something so that your emotions can actually gather around a focal point and go into one direction so that they can actually deepen. Also, the side effect is that if you're not integrated, you're sort of just half a person. You're just sort of half a person. That's not very interesting in friendship, if you're being friends with someone who's just sort of half a person. So be interesting. We're all interesting, obviously, but you know, if we actually can gather ourselves, we actually have something to give. Then we can actually give ourselves much more. Which is the next point, is that in friendship, don't expect friendship. Never expect friendship. Just give endlessly. Do not sit there and think, well, he wasn't a good friend to me. Well, no, of course not, because people are imperfect. Of course, people are imperfect friends. But you can be the one who's the friend. You can be the one who can give. Bring your all into this friendship. Share yourself, not just parts of yourself. I mean, you might have to take a step into the unknown with someone. Friendship means committing to the unknown. You don't know where this friendship will bring you. You don't know where you will grow towards. So, yeah, share yourself, give. Maybe even at times talk about how the friendship's going. Yeah, talk about it on a meta level. I sometimes shock my friends because I do that quite a lot. How's it? You know, how's it going? How does it feel? Again, Shantikara, another one of my friends, he said, I only do that with like my girlfriends. But it's good to sort of check in with how it's going between us. How are we doing? So that you can keep this perspective of, you know, ideally, that the friendship between you, the relationship between you, is sort of the most important thing. Not necessarily your own feelings or the feelings of the other person, although they are important. But at the end of the day, your working ground is the relationship between you and the other, is not just you and you being upset or the other person being upset, but how that relates to the dynamic, how that relates to the dynamic between the two of you. Commit to staying in connection. As I said, this deep faith that it'll be all right. When you're upset, communicate it, but keep the whole dynamic between you in mind. And then I have sort of this point where I don't really know what to say to that, but it just comes up for me again and again in friendship, which is just like, pull yourself together. Just get yourself together. Just get over it. It's just like, don't lose yourself in upsetness and in disappointment, and in if you do want to be a friend, you again, you have just this kind of relationship in mind where you can bring all of your upsetness into it. If you're upset, I mean, friendship is not always upsetness, but anyway, we've all had all our disappointments. You just bring that in, and you don't see it just from your own needs, but you see how that affects the whole relationship. Yes, anyway, so sometimes we just need to get over ourselves and just do whatever is necessary. Apologize, for example. And then I have another point, which is like, just stay grounded. Try to go beyond this sort of cackle friendships, you know, this sort of superficial, giggly friendship. Nice, many times, but try to find a sort of level of communication which goes deeper. Obviously, we can only do that with someone who has a common outlook, who's on the same sort of trajectory. We can't just go out on the street now and catch someone and say we're friends now. It's not possible. There needs to be already a genuine love amongst you. It's a sort of friendship where you can do that with someone who's sort of on a similar path as you are. But if you have those friends, that will tip over into your everyday conversations and meetings with other people, right? That will affect how you see other people as well. You will start seeing everyone as a potential friend. Friendship in itself is sort of at its highest goes beyond sort of ideologies and safe spaces. It goes beyond kind of set boxes that we put people in and opinions. The whole view of Buddhism is that potentially we could be friends with anyone. We don't have to agree with everyone. Potentially, the view of the Sangha, of the spiritual community, is one where you don't have to be friends with everyone, but potentially the potential is there, even with people that you fundamentally disagree with on, I don't know, whatever political topic or whatever ideology you have. Ideally, you have this sense of, they're a person because they're suffering and I'm suffering, and we're all just trying to make sense of why we're here, what this is. There could be a connection. So I'm just going to close this talk with the end of that long poem, The Veil of Stars. So just as a reminder, this whole path of friendship, of love, can take us all the way to selflessness, but we must start by getting in touch with our emotions, sharing as much as possible. The whole ideal of spiritual friendship that Sangha, our order, has is one where there's sort of no taboo areas, where we can say things that might be controversial, but we know it's sort of held in a bigger perspective, where we can be more complex than just superficial statements or agreements. Then just give yourself and let your emotions mature. Let your emotions become more and more mature, more and more pure. So I'm just going to end with the end of this long poem. Love is like a pool of water at midnight, which shows to us the stars of heaven, even though we look for them in the wrong direction. Place it in the sunlight of compassion, and the hard green fruit of desire will ripen into the softness and sweetness of golden love. Desire for anyone flowers into love for someone, and at last bears fruit as compassion for everyone. The tear of the Bodhisattva's compassion flows through the world as love, even as the austere snows of the Himalayas flow in rivers down into the green plains. It is the smile of the Bodhisattva that flashes upon me from the heart of the golden sunset, and the flood of his compassion that inundates my soul with streams of love. Joy deepens and deepens within my heart until it opens into an infinite sky of knowledge ablaze with stars. Only fools think that love is something that happens between a man and a woman. The wise know that it is love that makes the planets join hands together in their dance of joy about the sun. It is this great rhythm of joy that, having given birth to millions of stars in the sky, now pours down into my heart and ecstatically begets there the unending mystery of love. What joy it is to realize that every atom of the universe is reflected in my heart, and that the love of my heart is mirrored in every atom of the universe. The sorrows of the earth cast little shadows of darkness across the sunshine of my heart, even as the joy of my love is written in stars across the darkness of the sky. Reality is reflected in my heart as love, and this love of mine is in turn mirrored in the all-embracing bosom of reality, as though the moon lay reflected in the depths of the ocean, and the ocean in the calm, clear heart of the moon. I know that even from the inmost depths of heaven I shall see your face shining out upon me above the utmost beauty of the stars. The secret of love is love. Let the silence speak.